Well, we're visiting with Mike from Byron Macadamias, based in northern New South Wales. Thanks so much for inviting us to your orchard.
It's a pleasure, Grace.
Nice to meet you. We've been chatting on the phone for so long, and finally get to meet you, put a face to the name. I have to ask, these trees are much higher than I thought. However, do you get the nuts off the trees?
Well, we don't have to worry about getting the nuts off the trees. The nuts drop onto the ground over a period of time, and we pick them up with a harvester that runs across the ground and picks them up off the ground.
That sounds pretty easy.
It sounds easy, but it's a bit more complicated than that. And obviously you pick up everything that's on the ground, so you get stick, leaf, rocks, all sorts of things.
Okay, so a bit of process and sorting through everything once you
we do. We have to do a lot of sorting, and we sort manually several times before we send them off to the processor.
Now you've got some macadamias to share with us so we can explain to viewers how they actually, so this is how it drops off the tree?
Yep, that's the husk, the green husk. So the nut is embedded in that, and when we harvest the nut, we strip off, we dehusk the nut, so we take the husk off, and we take the nut
and what comes next?
Off, you see the nut in the shell.
Okay.
And then...
and that is very hard.
Yeah, that's very hard, yeah. Okay. But and we send that off to be processed, so that it gets cracked at a processor, and out of that comes the kernel.
Okay. Wow. So you couldn't really do all that by hand, could you?
You could, but not if you're processing 30 tonnes or so of nut.
And how many trees do you have? How many nuts do you produce a year?
Well, we started off with about 3,700 trees, but as it is a mature orchard, you can see it's quite dark in here. In the last few years, we've actually taken trees out of the orchard to try and open it up a bit to get more light and air through it. So the last 2 years, we've taken out just over 100 trees each year, so we're down to about 3,500 now.
Okay.
And we'll continue taking trees out over the next few years.
But in the future, that's going to help you increase your production because you're getting more sunlight in?
Hopefully. We're trying to grow nuts, not trees. As orchards mature, the yield tends to drop off because of the overcrowding and the shading. So the plan is to open them up, get more light in and more air, and increase the yield from each tree.
Okay. So you said it's a mature orchard. So how long do the trees take before they start producing nuts?
5 to 7 years before you can get anything from them now.
Wow. So not a quick cash crop.
No, not at all.
In for the long haul.
Absolutely.
Okay. And how long do they keep producing for once they're mature?
Well, we're not sure really. There are trees in Hawaii which have been producing for over 40 years. So these trees are getting close to 30, some of them. So hopefully they've got much more than 40 years production. But no one really knows how long they'll go for.
So it's interesting you mentioned Hawaii. A lot of people, when they hear the word macadamia, they think of Hawaii, but it actually didn't originate from there. No,
macadamia trees are not only indigenous to Australia, but actually indigenous to this area in northern New South Wales and southeast Queensland.
So this is where it all began, basically.
Well, that's where the trees come from, yes. But the initial macadamia production that was done in Hawaii, the trees were taken over to Hawaii and they started over there. So in fact, there's all sorts of different varieties of macadamia trees, and these varieties that I have here are older varieties which are called Hawaiian varieties.
Which they shouldn't be called Hawaiian, but anyway.
No, but they are Australian trees. Yeah.
Yes, and the true, bush tucker food, really.
Yeah, they're the macadamia is the only commercially grown indigenous product in Australia.
And we should make that known, I think.
Absolutely,
we should be proud of it, yeah. So Mike, what got you interested in growing macadamias? Did you grow up on a farm?
No, I didn't grow up on a farm at all. I had a 30-year IT career, so sitting behind a computer for many years. But after living in major cities all my life, I just got to the stage where I wanted a bit of space and to do something different. And I came up here and looked at a few different farms, looked at a couple of coffee farms and some conventional macadamia farms. And but I didn't like the idea of living somewhere where we're spraying noxious chemicals. We're on tank water here, so if chemicals drift onto your roof, it's going to end up in your drinking water sooner or later. And so this organic macadamia farm was up for sale, so that seemed to fit the bill. And I'm glad I ended up in macadamias because I think it's such a great product.
And I'm very glad you did too, because I use your oil in my products and it is gorgeous.
Thank you.
A beautiful product you produce. Obviously lots of loving care goes into looking after these trees.
Yeah, it's a big effort.
Yeah. Now, Mike, when we first talked about me coming down to visit you, you warned me and said I needed to wear boots because of the snakes here, and I was a little bit frightened about that, I have to admit. And on the drive up here, we did see some red-bellied black snakes, and one of our crew got bitten by a fire ant. So I started to think, oh, I'm glad I'm wearing these boots. But tell me why snakes are actually not that bad.
Well, if they're away from the house, they're part of the solution, not part of the problem. Macadamia attract rats, and being an organic farm, of course, we can't bait for rats. Snakes are one prong in the defence against rats. As I say, macadamias bring rats, rats bring snakes. So if we see a snake out in the orchard, and most of the time I do see them out on the boundaries of the orchard, far away from the house, then
good.
I'm happy to sort of leave them alone as long as they leave me alone. Yeah, but that's just one of the, as I say, just one of the prongs in the attack against rats.
Mother Nature's way. So,
we've got the other things like owls, and we have a few tawny frogmouth owls around the place.
Okay.
And also Southern Cross University is just about to start a trial of introducing owl boxes and owl perches, and we're the first cap off the rank to do that. So we're going to try that in the new year. So we'll be monitoring the effectiveness of that. So that's something that's been coming along for a few years.
Oh, that's great to hear. A lot of firsts there. Wow.
Yeah.
And tell me about, because as we were driving along the orchard, we saw some little cards stapled to trees.
Yeah, well,
what are they there for?
Obviously, there were several pests for macadamias. The most prominent, I suppose, at the moment is a bug called fruit spotting bug, which attacks the nut when it's very small and makes the nut drop immaturely, and so you lose part of your product. We're trialling a wasp called anastatus, which parasitises the eggs of the fruit spotting bug, and so as I say, we're just trialling it for the first time this year. Fruit spotting bug in conventional farms could be treated with endosulfan and a host of other sprays, but endosulfan was the one that got the bad press. But so we're hoping
and it's now banned.
And it's now banned,
Yeah.
yes. And so we're hoping that this biological control will lead to not only improving the lot for organic growers, but reduce the dependence of conventional growers on pesticides.
And it's interesting that you're the first farm to be trialling this new method, and they needed to do that trial in an organic environment where no pesticides have been used.
Yeah, obviously as a control, if you're knocking down the fruit spotting bug with pesticides, then it'd be hard to judge how the efficacy of the biological control. So yes, it's good to be able to use an organic farm.
And to be needed by the conventional industry.
Well, hopefully, hopefully it'll be a success and it will be taken up throughout the industry.
Oh, good on you. We'll be waiting to hear how that goes. And Mike, there's another card stapled to the trees that's different to the fly spotting one.
Yeah.
What does that one do?
That was for a pest called nut borer. That was the first biological control. They used trichogramma wasps, and it's a similar sort of process. Where the trichogramma wasps parasitise the nut borer eggs, and that's been running now for several years and has been in fact so successful that conventional growers have taken it up because it's cheaper than spraying, cheaper and more effective.
Wow. And just on the price of spraying, tell me the difference in terms of running an organic farm if you wanted to use a safe sort of approved spray, like a pyrethrum based spray, as opposed to what conventional farmers are using.
Okay, well, pyrethrum is extremely expensive. You can get an organic version, which is an allowable input. And a couple of years ago, I priced pyrethrum for this farm, and to cover the whole farm would have cost just for the product over $7,000. Whereas a conventional product, something like Bulldog, which is a pesticide, might cost $300, say, for a drum, which would cover the orchard twice. So you're looking at, this was a couple of years ago now, but you're looking at $150 to cover the orchard in a conventional way compared to, say, $7,000.
Right. So that's a massive difference.
It is. I can't even work out what the percentage is, but it's order of magnitude stuff.
Okay, so we really need to support organic farming because there's a lot of hidden costs. There are costs. The costs for an organic farm are significantly higher than for a conventional farm. So, Mike, I'm fascinated to know how the nuts go from this to this that we find in the shops to eat. Can you talk us through the process?
Okay, well, the nuts drop like that with a husk on them, and we pick them up with our harvester. And then in the shed we remove the husk, we dehusk them, which means the nuts look like that. So that's the nut and shell.
Okay.
We dry that down and we inspect it a few more times, and then we send it off to a nut processor. Now, we have to use, because we're certified organic, we have to use a processor who's also certified organic to maintain the integrity of the product. So we're quite limited in our choices of the processors we can use. There are only 2 certified organic processors in Australia.
Wow, I hope they're nearby.
Well, fortunately, one is it's only about half an hour away. So
good.
in Alstonville. So we send nuts in the shell off to the processor.
Yep.
They crack them for us, so that's the kernel that comes out of the shell.
Yep.
And then that's the nut product that I sell. Now, also, as I said before, we sort the nuts several times in the shed. We try to identify immature nuts, which are nuts that we use to produce oil. So they're not good enough. They don't have a high enough oil content to be premium nuts. So we send them off to be. Well, first we have to have them cracked as well. So we send them to the nut processor again, the certified nut processor, to be cracked, and then we send the nuts from there to a certified oil processor to be pressed into oil.
Okay.
And so everyone who processes the product has to be a certified organic processor.
So what would be the difference in the oil content? So that's about, like a one that you would eat would be about
70-75% oil. So anything significantly less than that, maybe 50%. It still has a fair bit of oil in it, so we can use it to extract the oil from it, but it's not good enough to eat.
Okay. But then when it's pressed, it's 100% pure oil when it's pressed. So the quality's the same.
Yeah. And I always, one of my things that I like to bang on about is the quality of the oil, macadamia oil. It seems to be a bit of a secret that macadamia oil has a higher percentage of monounsaturated fat than olive oil. I think it would be good if a lot more people knew that.
Yeah. Fantastic for your skin as well. Very close match to Healthy Skin Sebum. And excellent health benefits.
Absolutely, yeah.
So eat more macadamias.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time.
It's been a pleasure, Grace.
Lovely to be here. Thank you.